Then I say let's get into the Survivor Series predictions.
Sure thing.
We'll start off with one of the War Games matches, and we'll start with the women's War Games match, which is obviously featuring Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi, and Becky Lynch against Damage Control, which is Bayley, Io Sky, Kairi Sane, and Asuka. This is going to be an interesting affair. Will it be a team synergy that gets the win in this case, or do you think the babyfaces can triumph? Like, where are you leaning?
Look, I think personally, I would like the heels to win, and I think they're going to win because I think there's a lot more juice to get out of that storyline where it's like the heels being triumphant, the focus being on damage control because they've got a lot of talent in there right now, and using that as the launch pad for the Bailey and Io Sky feud to come out. And of course, there's also that in principle, I prefer to predict that teams overcome makeshift alliances when it comes to any kind of team up match. And War Games is no exception to that. So I'm going to go with the heels on this one.
I'm gonna go with the baby faces.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of playing the odds here because I got 9 right in my last predictions, but I don't predict I'll do the same this time around. So I'm going with the baby faces here because some of my other predictions will also sort of lean that way, and I'm hoping that I can average out, get a better result. But I think there is grounds that they can do it. I mean, Becky Lynch, Bianca, and Charlotte are all former champions. They're all pretty big names in the company. And also, Damage Control, there could be an instance of a bit of like miscommunication between Bayley and the rest, maybe costing them in the end. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. All right, second up, we've got Gunter versus The Miz for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. I think this is a fairly simple prediction, but I'm backing Gunter to defend here successfully. I think
Yeah,
he's the
you're right.
leading candidate here, right?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm going the exact same way. I wouldn't mind Miz potentially being the one to dethrone Gunter later on. Perhaps, on like the last episode of the year or like a prominent TV match or something like that. But certainly I don't feel like it's quite time. I think there's a lot more Imperium story that we want to go through. And there's just a lot more potential there. So I think we have to stick with Gunter continuing his record-breaking reign.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking is I would like it to be a fresh intercontinental champion that dethrones him, just because I think it'll be nice.
Like
But
a maiden champion.
a maiden champion. Uh, but I also think that they don't need to, like, they could do it at maybe like the Royal Rumble, have him lose it on that night, and it sort of sets him up. So it's like fresh, like 2024. His new goal is kind of like I've dominated the IC championship, and now it's time for me to dominate a world championship.
Maybe he wins the Royal Rumble after
And
that.
maybe he wins the Royal Rumble.
Yeah. I
So I
think
think
Sportsbet, I believe, actually has him as the favorite or something like that.
oh really? Okay
Yeah.
then. So who knows? All right, well let's get
Next
into
match.
the next match, which is Carlito and Santos Escobar. This one's oh okay, tricky. It's a bit trickier than the previous match, but I think it's going to be Santos Escobar. I think the heel here because he's just turned. I think they need him over Carlito would be a pretty big scalp. So I think I'm going to be leaning towards him. What about you?
Yeah, I actually think this is on the same level as there's the previous one. I think it's easy to say that Santos is going to win because he doesn't have to win clean. I think I might be wrong here, but I think maybe like Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garcia or Angel Garza are being touted as being called up from NXT in order to uh, beef up his new faction. So maybe they can factor into this match and help him get the victory.
Yeah, perhaps. It could lead to a bit of like a faction warfare.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be nice. All right. Well, since we're talking about factions, let's talk about one of the bigger dogs of WWE's premium faction for me, which is Rhea Ripley of the Judgment Day defending her Women's World Championship against Zoe Stark. Uh, Obviously, Zoe Stark's actually had quite a bit of success since joining the main roster. this is her first singles opportunity for the Women's World Championship. Can she overcome our Aussie icon?
I'm going to answer with a very laconian phrase. Mummy is always on top. End of discussion, full stop, complete. That's it. Mummy's always on top.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to beef it up, make it nice and like commentating in the sense of, but yeah, no, it's going to be Rhea Ripley. All right, well, this takes us into what I assume is going to be our main event of Survivor Series WarGames, and that is the men's WarGames match between Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and Randy Orton, unless you believe Thanos here, versus the Judgment Day, which in the form of Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Dirty Dom, and JD McDonough, and their associate Drew McIntyre. So I said before, I'm playing the odds. I'm predicting the Babyfaces to win this one as well. For me, under the belief that one of these Babyface teams will win. So I think they will do it, but I also think that there could be a post-match Randy assault of some kind, or I certainly think that Randy is not going to be a babyface for too long. They'll milk the pop, but I think they're going to have him turn quickly on either Jay or Cody and sort of just give him something nice. Because let's be honest, Randall Keith is always better as a heel than a face.
Look, I agree with all of the points that you've made, and I don't see a problem with either team getting the win here, right? I think either babyface is getting the win at a big four, which wouldn't be a problem, or the alternative option, which I'm actually going to go with, it's going to be the heels getting the victory because that they are that dominant and coherent faction. Yes, they've got a new member in JD McDonough. Yes, they've got an associate. But I think just in principle, having the established team going over does make logical sense. And that being said, because we're trying to build up Damian Priest as the successor to the World Championship after Seth Rollins, it does make it look good if his team gets the victory. So potentially with him actually getting the fall, possibly even pinning Seth Rollins. I think it would be a big deal because it's such a brutal match. There's even the possibility that he cashes in after, or something to that effect, just to make that massive result or get that big news story out. I wouldn't rule it out. I heard someone actually say he might cash in during the match. I don't see how that would really logistically make sense. So does that mean that the War Games continues and is declared a no contest, and then a singles match begins? I don't think that would actually happen. But all in all, I can very, very easily see a really dominant Judgment Day triumph at the end of the night, and getting that yet another change to the WWE's Facebook cover photo that has all of them in a row. The Team Judgment Day getting that victory and standing up on that cage in triumph.
Okay. Well, I'll do as a final prediction, just because there's so much speculation going around it that we might as well dip our foot into it as well. And that is, does CM Punk actually make an appearance at Survivor Series? Everyone is speculating about it. I think for everyone, it's just fantasy booking for the simple fact that he's no longer contractually tied to AEW, and it is in Chicago. So, do you think he makes an appearance?
Look, I would love for him to make an appearance. I would be absolutely ecstatic. It would be the biggest news story in wrestling for years, frankly. That being said, the pragmatist in me says it's not happening. I think if it were going to happen, then they would have allowed more of a tease rather than announcing Randy Orton as being that fifth member. I actually thought Randy Orton was going to appear on Raw in order to quell those rumors, but instead they just made it abundantly clear that it was going to be him, and then his return, his on-screen return will occur at Survivor Series. So realistically speaking, no CM Punk this weekend in Chicago, and because Randy Orton's been announced, I don't think the fans are going to hijack the show. Do you think he's going to be there?
I don't. I would love nothing more than for him to come, because I think it would just be great. And I think and not just I think, I feel strongly that CM Punk is just, he does more good to wrestling than harm. Now, some don't have that take. Some believe the opposite, but I do think that he does more good for wrestling in general. So I hope, in that sense, that he does show up. But I don't believe he will. But let us know in the comments if you think otherwise. If he's going to make an appearance, let us know how you feel about it. Do we even want to see Punk in WWE? I think we definitely do. You and I, Thanasi, but we'll see. Maybe others have a different opinion.